That's when we moved here.
So I moved to the high school.
How many people are on this tonight?
Well, I'm trying to say, Crystal, you may have to help me on how to do the three dots. I'm hunting for my three dots like I'm doing.
What are you looking to do?
Just make it where you see
Just follow
everybody.
the rule.
Where you-
We usually, so I can try to help you
Start
go
to-
down to your video where it says stop video, far left, hit the little arrow beside it. What do you have there? View settings. that's
Now go
probably
up
not
there
it.
to the view and then say view
On
all.
the top right
I
corner,
didn't
does
know.
that say
View.
view up there? I
Uh-huh.
can't see
Right
that.
there. Now you want to see gallery view.
There you go.
There you go.
So
There
you're
you
going out
go.
to-
Everybody's got their. All right. 2 minutes to start. Bonnie on board. I'm not. Bonnie.
Bonnie's got her little coworker there. Hey, Cohen,
See everybody.
how's Cohen tonight? That's her grandson.
Oh, you don't want to know.
No, I didn't know who you were talking.
All right, Bonnie's here. Bonnie's here. That's good. Good.
She
So
looks
she
comfy
can do
in
the
her
safety.
chair.
Yeah, her safety report from the comfort. Bonnie's been Chattanooga. Not more importantly, Caitlin doing okay.
She's better. They had to go back in and do some things, but she's better.
Okay, good deal. All right.
Thank you.
Bonnie on her snow day got to drive to Chattanooga today, so.
Okay.
I haven't heard from Wade today. That's kind of unusual, but.
This is the same one we already have.
No, this is a new one, as of January 25. I have text Wade, so
It's Derek.
Derek is out due to work obligation. It was a major thing. He said he dreamed about work all night and then he woke up and yes, there was problems. And so he'll be working most of the night, he said.
Well, it's 6. I don't know. Need to wait. Did he ever answer?
No answer as of right now, Mr. Chairman, so I just checking on you. You want me to call him?
I am calling real quick.
Okay.
If he's close, we'll, wait a second. If not, we're gonna go ahead and get started.
Hey, Alice, this is Freddie. I was just checking on Wade, see if he was gonna make it to the workshop. Yes. Has he forgot? He's at west side of the ballgame, probably. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, thanks.
Okay, we're gonna get started.
Okay, there's your answer, Mr. Chairman.
We're gonna get started. I guess you'll tell us who the teacher and principal and supervisor you are.
I will, Mr. Chairman. They're all, you've received press releases on the teacher of the district teachers of the year. We'll have those, invite those for the meeting. And also our principal and supervisor, I'll send out a press release later on this week. So the suspense mounts. They already know, so there's not much suspense.
Who votes on them?
What's
You- Do you pick them or does the school pick them?
A committee.
Okay.
A committee does that, so. But no, I'm one voice in the middle of that, so. But now the district teacher of the year is chosen by a committee. And I don't have anything to do with that. Marcia leads that up, and the committee meets and they go over those applications. and-
Actually, I give them to the committee members separately so that way they can independently review the applications. So I do a modified application for Cannon County before it goes to the district level, and those are the ones that are used.
And each school chooses their school.
Each school.
Yeah, each school chooses theirs, and then out of that, then the committee then
Okay,
does that.
I
So
was just curious.
we got some good ones, had some great ones this time, so we're very appreciative.
There's 3 of us here, that's pretty easy to see, so. Do you guys see anything wrong with the agenda? Anything you'd like to change or add? Item number 2, consent agenda. Approve the minutes of January 14th, 2021 meeting. We don't have any bus trips. Read over the minutes. If you see something you disagree with, let us know. Item number 3, Ms. Bonnie.
I moved her to the front of the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
I
So
understand.
I do,
Marty.
thank you. Thank you for doing that. Several years at the end of the agenda, but just a couple of things. We did get an email that the channels have been approved. Mr. Curtis for our bus radios for the safety grant. Mr. Curtis could probably speak more to that. So that project can now begin to get on its way. Also, I had a long conversation with one of the safety representatives from the state. He actually works for the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department, and he talked to me about getting additional training for our SROs. So I'm going to have a conversation with Sheriff Young, and we're going to discuss about the possibility of the SROs being able to go to the SRO state workshop. They haven't been able to do that in a couple of years because of funding, but I believe I can move some funds around in the safety grant. He said that would be approved. So usually we have a few $100s left over at the end where things, when we purchase our AED batteries and those types of things, they come in a little under budget. So I'm hoping that we'll have enough money to be able to let our SROs do that this year without any expense from the county. So still getting our safety items from TEMA, but we cannot, they do not have thermometers on their site. That's no longer an item we can get. And that's all.
Curtis, you can talk about the grant.
all right, yeah, let me talk about the radio grant as part of our safety grant for this year. We do have the frequencies now, have been, and we appreciate Roy Sullivan's diligent work on that. Roy worked hand in hand with that, and he also worked with some TEMA officials to expedite that. So we really pushed that through the FCC and got that done. And so my appreciation to Roy Sullivan and the help with doing that. So then what will take place now that the frequencies are gained, then the installing of the transmitters or what we call repeaters at the various sites throughout the county. We're utilizing the same towers as the EMA uses. So Roy's expert at that, and then at some point he will give us the go ahead to bring our buses in, or select appointment times for buses to come in, and they'll install the radios on the buses. So they're going to start with the repeater sites first, and then once that is secured, then go into the individual buses and have those on, including the contract buses. But the contract buses will have the radios on there, will say property of Cannon County Schools. So in case they either stop at some point and not be a contract driver, then they would have to turn that radio back in before they dispose of that bus. or put it on another bus is what they'll do. So we'll work out the logistics on all that. And I'm looking forward to that project being done. Our buses there are many, many places where they do not have cell phone service out the county because of the topography of our county. So that is something that we've been needing for a long, long time. And Lisa Black she is at a ball game tonight, at an elementary game. So she could tell you a whole lot about that, but we're working with her on getting those installed in our buses. But we're so glad that project is, appreciate Bonnie's work on that, Roy's work, Lisa's work, everybody's working together to get that accomplished. So it's something that we've needed for a long time. So I'm very proud. That's one of those good things to talk about.
Yep. Item number 4, review of middle school programs and offerings.
Let me talk about that just for a second. This looks familiar to the board, it should. This is from, remember our planning a joint venture from way back when you got your planning and joint venture. This is that. And what we looked at that and we're trying to follow along with some of the planning and joint venture. And in the February meeting, it says review of middle school programs and offerings. And then of course, policy reviews, we do policy review every month anyway. But here's, I asked Crystal Kennedy to come tonight, our CTE director, to talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing at CTE at our middle grades and how we can even get that better and better and better with CTE, because that's the move right now, is getting the CTE programs to our middle grade students that are needing to start thinking about careers and thinking about what they want even before they get to the high school level. So that's the push right now really across the state, across the country, is getting more CTE information down to our middle grade students. So this time, Crystal, you want to?
I have a short presentation you're going to put on this computer.
It'd be fine if
Okay.
you want to put it on there, or just don't knock our recording going off there.
It's just in my email.
The only thing is, I don't think you can get to your Gmail from here.
I should be
because-
able to.
Okay. I just hope that you don't knock me out off of the recording.
We'll find out.
Yes, we will. So if we lose you, if you're listening tonight, we'll bring it right back.
That's not what I needed.
I hope we're still going. So Bonnie, are you still unmuted? I think I heard somebody.
Okay, I can hear it, but how am I muting myself? Is there a
Mute, please.
microphone down at the bottom? Yes. It says mute.
Somebody please
Okay,
mute.
is it up or not? What? The thing that says mute.
Okay, go ahead and do your presentation, or I'm gonna have to go back
I'm
over.
gonna unmute it before I.
Get me to go back and see who's,
Yeah, see who's muted and
you
mute.
have it.
Have I got it? I got
Mhm.
control.
Hit the other one.
You went to the wrong
Hit the
file.
other one.
Nope.
Yep.
Don't do that.
Cancel.
Cancel,
There.
thank
They're
you.
There you go, now enlarge that one.
I think it was Lisa or somebody else. Was it?
Rhonda doesn't have her little muted thing on.
Can you force
Go to-
mute?
Go to full view.
Okay, I think they're
Everybody's
muted.
everybody's muted.
Everybody's muted now, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Crystal. And then you've got control now, Crystal.
All
So
right, thanks. Okay, so I'm gonna try to be quick. I'm just gonna basically do a rundown of where we started at my beginning. So I've been in education for 14 years, all CTE education. Have been in this role, CTE director for 3 years, and also teaching. I also teach as well. So prior to the 2018-19 school year, there wasn't any real direct access to CTE in the middle grades. They were able to come over in the spring, that we bussed them over for an afternoon and we grouped them up, and they visited classrooms for an hour once a year. that was their exposure to CTE until they came to us. Late spring, summer of 2019, I was able to purchase with Perkins Reserve Grant that I wrote the virtual job shadow. So that's just it's like a career exploration software. As you see on that next bullet, this is a site license. So we were only able to put that in one school. There wasn't an option to make that to all schools. So we obviously chose Woodbury Grammar, really just due to logistics. And I could pop over there and kind of check it out. And they're a large school. So I thought we're going to hit more of our county kids if we put it at Woodbury Grammar. So that was the reasoning behind that. So we purchased that spring of 2019. We implemented Virtual Job Shadow, basically how our 8th grade teachers at Woodbury Grammar could fit it in. If they had computer time or guidance time or whatever they had, then that's what they would, when they would do that. Late spring, with that same Perkins funds, I was able to purchase ZSpace, which is like a virtual learning device. And it does, like, when the kids wear it, it shows like a 3D heart or mechanics working on cars, things like that. Again, that was just given to Woodbury Grammar since they were going to be the ones to do Virtual Job Shadow. We're going to utilize the results from that to pair it with the ZSpace and just kind of carry that through. So fall of 2019, that's whenever the setup began. And I know it sounds like you should just be able to throw that in there. Brian's on the call, so he knows that that's not exactly the case. There was a lot of issues with getting it set up at schools and work keys and all that fun stuff. So it was initially set up in fall of 2019. Late fall. In December of 2019 is whenever Woodbury Grammar started using the Virtual Job Shadow at their school for their 8th graders. So basically those 8th grade teachers would just take those kids into the computer lab. They're learning it. I popped over there and tried to learn it because I've never seen, I've just seen it in like demo mode kind of a thing. So early spring, the ZSpace, and then COVID happened. So that's just kind of where we ended with that. We still do have the ZSpace over there. But basically we had this for a few months and they were on it a couple of times, I think. And so really it was just, hey, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's figure something else out. That was okay. We're just hitting one school. What can we do to kind of reach out to all the schools to give them exposure to what CTE programs we have, and really exposure to know what CTE is and what careers are, and help me do my job and guide the programs that we do teach at the high school, change what's needed, add what's needed, get rid of what's not needed, that fun stuff. So I have better slides next. So I'm going to break all these down. These were kind of like our first initial, what are we going to do? And in the meantime, I also got a grant for Major Clarity, which allowed more leeway. It didn't require a site license. I can use it with the virtual students. So I'll hit on that in a second. So these were our options. Of course, thinking, a little old school, because it's kind of what I am, like, hey, we got to get a teacher in there. We need a teacher in there in the room. Let's see if we can get a CTE teacher to go travel. There's 6 K-8 schools. They can do a 6-week rotation to each grammar school. But of course, that poses a lot of problems. Funding, obviously, being number one, a huge problem. If I do not have funding for that teacher, do I look at taking one from the high school to try to travel? In that case, I'm taking that teacher out of that program of study. We may not offer that now because that teacher is now at the middle grades level. Weather delays and closing, like equal distribution of days. So if I was scheduled for Woodland this week and last week, we obviously know that those kids would not have gotten all of the exposure. They wouldn't have gotten the full 6 weeks due to snow days. We looked at maybe doing a halftime teacher. Again, I keep going back to Woodbury Grammar because they're 5 to 7 minutes down the road. So if I do put a halftime teacher in there, they're able to travel back to the high school. We did that with band one year with our music teacher for a couple of years. We had 2 music teachers, imagine. So we were able to do that with him. So that also was on the table. Looked at mobile labs, looked at maybe some grant funding to get like a STEM mobile lab. Again, that I have to have an educator to take that around. I have to worry about funding, mileage, again, weather delays and all that fun stuff. We looked at doing like a video to kind of introduce each program of study that we offer, highlighting, you know, each teacher does their own video, creating one big thing and some like mini lessons. But y'all that have been in the K-8 schools or whatever grade you teach know that they'll probably do that one day and then they'll never see that again. And so I didn't think that that would be as good of an idea. So it's just impersonal, they're non-interactive, what have you. So we decided before virtual was a big thing, we called it teleteach. We'll just teleteach. So that's what we've gone with basically. So we have a high school teacher that has one class period dedicated to CTE at the middle grade level. So it was open to all 6th through 8th graders for all K-8 schools because there's no travel time. They just log on. So we know that now. That's everybody knows how that works. Possible issues, and this is what we did run into with scheduling. We had to worry about our schedule at the high school. When I first started, I got all the schedules from the grammar schools, and that's a hot mess too. Like you look at this huge sheet and it's like specials and art, and I don't know what a specials is, like, because I've never worked in that arena. So Emily at Woodbury Grammar, because again, that was my access, who I've been talking to a lot. She was able to help me and understand what that meant. Logistics, we had to worry about who can teach it, which CTE teacher is going to be able to teach that, have time in their day to do that. What's the setup going to look like? Does every school have equal resources? All that fun stuff. Of course, the benefits over there, every school in Cannon County is going to have an equal opportunity to participate. They'll meet and be introduced to all the programs of study. And of course, it's engaging and interactive. No questions so far? No? Good. Okay, so after running numbers and getting all the schedules together, Miss Irvin is the one who was chosen to participate, and she partially volunteered. She's like, I'll help, I'll do what I can. She knows technology, so it's kind of a no-brainer. She teaches at second period every day. So every day, that's what she does. The first 9 weeks, you can see there, it's like an introduction. Hey, this is how you use Google Classroom. This is what a Google Doc is. Slides, basic introduction to the programs of study that we offer. So that was the first 9 weeks that we had. The second 9 weeks, and of course we're virtual and we're not, and then we're hybrid, and then so it was, you know, it's just we've made it through and it's fine. So it's just kind of hit or miss on some days. The second 9 weeks was set to do those full 9 weeks in introduction of every program of study. So those teachers of every program of study at the high school are getting on to the Google Meet. So Miss Irving gets it up, she gets it ready. Miss Haley teaches animal science. So if it was her week, Monday she'd be with these group of kids, Tuesday this group, Wednesday, that's kind of how it worked. So she would do a mini lesson, talk about CTSOs, which is career and technical student organizations like your FFA, DECA, FBLA, explain what that was. Students, some like our STEM teacher had the students create a video. And Mr. Patrick created his own little cute video. I'll have to show y'all later. It's super cute. And then during class, those middle grade students can interact with the high school students. So Connie Lawrence, when she did hers, we were virtual. And she had her students log in to their Google Meet second period like they do every day. And she was also logged into Miss Irvin's. So they kind of just made one giant Google Meet that entire week we were virtual. And they were able to ask her kids, you know, about competitions and what do you do in class and what class do I take if I want to cook and what class do I take if I don't want to cook and all those things. Here are some sample program of study introduction slideshows. There's a trivia. Some of them have like lessons that they would send to them afterward. And then Miss Irvin would then collect those through Google Classroom, assess those, make notes and all that fun stuff. There's that. Okay. Realized issues. So it doesn't matter how much you plan something until you actually do it. You're not really sure how that's going to work. Number one being, and Miss Urban realized this in a hurry, of the 6 K-8 schools, we were able to get 4 participants. So she's dealing with just 4 of the 6 K-8 schools. Long story short, there's 180 students that she has just in that arena, not counting her 99 that she has in class every day. So looking at that, that's intense. That's intense for her, 279 students. And she's doing it. She's fine and she's not complaining or anything, but I see that numbers wise. And I wouldn't want to, that's a lot. It's just a lot. And luckily we have a good CTE group and they help when they can and all that. They're only still getting 1 full day with that program of study teacher, because Short Mountain 6th grade may just meet on Mondays. Woodland 6th and 8th grade may meet on Thursdays. It just depends on how it worked in their schedule. So that's why that is the way that it is. But they are getting to at least be introduced to them, see them, and all that. And we had some, of course, logistics issues with CTE teachers being impacted by COVID, being quarantined, sometimes, some of them a couple times. So they may have been scheduled for this week, but then they had to push it off to the next week, or they may miss a Monday because they're out sick or their kid's out sick, and then we had to replan that. So that's kind of a nightmare. And then, of course, those teachers all have a second period. So for that full week, they're instructing and having one-on-one conversations with these middle grade students, but then they also have their regular class that they're having to teach as well.
How's that affecting the middle school age kids that are in school?
From our feedback, from what I've seen, they love it.
I know, but they're having to miss regular class.
They do it during their specials.
Okay.
So it may be their guidance hour just once per week. Each school is just missing their special just that once per week.
What 2 schools not participating?
Eastside was, I think they responded like mid-September. So legit, we'd already worked all that out, so they weren't able to get in. And was never had response from Westside. So we did all of this in the summer. So it was June, July emails, schedules, all that. July 29th, we were ready to roll this past summer. But I think they love it. I mean, they email and ask these teachers questions. Whenever they were scheduling, Miss Lawrence said, I've had like 3 kids email me from the middle grades. So they're emailing her on their own, asking questions because they all registered last week. The last couple of weeks, they just registered for the 8th graders did anyway. I like surveys and I like numbers. So every year I always send a survey out to the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. We're all adults and we know that even if they wanted to 75 students be cosmetologists, that there may not be a need for that specific industry in an area. But this is, so far I've had 169 respondents for the survey. You could say engineering so far.
Who those 8 are that want to be teachers. So we
I know.
You're like those.
Tag them real quick, right? So we can always go back and look and see, who they are. Once we get the Major Clarity implemented, which is our new career assessment, whenever they do these surveys and these interest inventories and things, it will follow them. It's something that they can do every year because we all know that I may want to be a vet today, but then my dog broke his leg and I passed out, and I may not want to do that now. I may want to do something else. So interest inventory has changed, but this so far is what they have said is their number one interest. And I do question too. I'm happy that the majority is engineering. If they really know what that entails, are we talking mechanical engineering, civil engineering, building robot engineering? I don't know if they truly know what that may be.
Animal science.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Our ag teachers were always very good at, I don't want to say selling their program, but they make it fun. They have a good fun learning environment too.
Video game design.
Mhm.
That was unheard of.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is always interesting, and I always try to throw some on there that are kind of random. But any questions about this? Sorry, it's going longer than I thought. I apologize. So if you pull the career clusters and state standards, these are the potential course offerings that you can actually offer to middle grade students. So they can already have this introductory course. I don't want to say out of the way, but they can already have a huge foundation on learning in these certain areas. If you had that focus, if you had some plan or program or instructor at that level that could teach those things.
So there's none in family and consumer science.
The social health,
Social health would be
mhm,
considered
it's
that,
human
okay.
services.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so there's that.
So Crystal,
Go ahead.
go back to that. slide
Okay.
for a second. But if you're looking at that, could this be done in a virtual setting too? That if a person or a student that was interested in, let's say, or can you deliver keyboarding and computer applications to that student virtually wherever they're at, or would it be better to have an instructor in a middle grades program?
Based on our virtual experience, I'm going to say hands-on in person, especially with the technology or computer class. Not even especially, just with all of them really. Career exploration, you could do something with that.
Right.
But again, you're still going to have that person that has that class assigned to them. If you're talking about a current high school teacher,
Right.
say that we had Ms. Copcutt, Ms. Haley teaching Introduction to Agriculture. That's a class period that she would not be able to service the 9-12
Right,
students, and they're
Could you
full.
video those at some point and then offer that?
You could, it's going to be different standards of what I teach my 8th grader as
Right.
opposed to what I teach my 10th
Right.
grader. Different activities, things like that.
Okay, thanks.
One last one. So here are the key points. I'm just gonna throw those out there. The current way that we're doing that virtually is great. Logistically, if we were to offer that to all 6th, 8th grade across the county, we would definitely have to do more than one class period, more than one teacher. I can't see them servicing 560 students or however many the full 6, 8, probably not that many, what, 450? We would have to revamp and adjust that. Of course, then you're again taking away 1 or 2 instructors or 1 or 2 class periods to do that. So it's just not an ideal setup, and just equitable expansion of the programs. I deal with in every meeting that I have, districts that have resources, they have certain school setups that are conducive to this type of learning. And where we are currently, it's tough. It's just tough to meet those needs. If I want to apply for a middle school grant or a middle grades grant, I have 6 grants that I have to write, 6 numbers to pull, 6 levels of data to pull, and it's not it's doable, but I teach all day too. So, that's just not an option for me to effort those grants all day like some other districts may have the ability to do. So that's also an issue. That was it. That's all I had.
Thank you
I
so much.
apologize.
That was good.
Y'all have questions for me?
I would say I have one at home, and I've talked to a handful of middle school kids in the county that are exposed to this, and they love it.
Mhm.
You guys are doing a good job with what we can do at the moment.
It's a lot more fun. She has said, Ms. Herbert, I've popped in, Mr. Nichols has popped in just to see their cute little faces. It's amazing what like 6th grade to 9th grade,
Yes.
it's like a whole different, it's just a whole different world. And they call her Miss Shauna, which we don't do that at the house. But so I think they like it, and it's opening their eyes too. We try to make sure that we had all of those program of study introductions done before we sit the survey. So they would kind of have a better understanding of what is STEM and what does that mean and all
I'm
that.
anxious to see in your data too, Crystal, how that when they get their program of study, is that easier? That should be easier for them to pick a program of study after
Maybe.
being exposed to that if
Right.
they're interested in.
Or
something.
even, I like data and numbers and following, groups. I like stats.
Clusters,
That's
yeah.
my jam. So, it would be interesting to see those that were exposed and how often, what percentage they change their program of study throughout, because that happens every year. We just entered schedules this past week, and these kids have taken intro to this, or like, I don't like it. And so I don't want to say wasted, because not knowing what you don't,
Because you guys
know
still
what
have
you don't want to do is
information,
also
still
very
have to-
important too, but they could have just gotten a little further ahead.
Right.
All right, I'll go ahead and,
Log out and make sure I'm.
I'm not gonna, if I log out, it'll log you out, so I'm not
Don't
gonna do
log me
that.
out, Don't log me out. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for that. We should be back going now. I think I'm recording. We ought to be recording. Okay.
It says recording up there.
All right, so
Yeah.
that's good. That's great. All right, Mr. Chairman, back to you, sir.
I want to move item number 5. We're going to cover that,
Yeah, y'all have
I
questions?
believe, in our financial workshop in a few minutes. Item number 6, review policies 5.101 to 5.310 personnel. Mr. Fergus.
If you look at, in your packets, you'll see the review of policies 5.101 and 5.31. This is the February policy. She's got those highlighted for you. I appreciate Teresa doing that. You see the policies that have been done, employment practices, separation practices, employee leaves. And then at the very bottom, and then at the very top of the next page, then 3.10. So that very top of the page of page 2 does go into them. And some of those you recently changed, and most of these were changed. If you look at just going down through the numbers, back in 19, we changed a bunch of them. In 19, few of them are older policies, but these are the ones that I think are really the older ones are in March. And with employee health practices that have been around for a long time, and then rights and responsibilities and temporary personnel and all of that. So some of that has not changed in quite a while. And that's in March. So you review half of them this month and half of them in March. So I said do the pink for Valentine's and do the green for March. So Teresa was color coding. So but you can look at those. I asked our board members to go back through, you know how to get there, to click on those and click on those. If there's any questions, let us know, or any of them that you say, well, we should review that one. Like I say, this month are mostly 19, and even one of them was reviewed. We did one of them last month in the FFCRA. It was done. So these are most all of these have been reviewed, and so very recently, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Item number 7, selection of budget workshop dates for March and April. Now, we're supposed to have budget turned in the commission in April, correct?
May 15th, sir.
May 15th.
May 15. So
Not got any dates that you,
Should we wait on
well, I mean, we can set some and then ask him.
propose it and then he'll be at the, oh, we already have one March 2nd.
Yep, March 2, we've already got one. But other than that, that's it for March. Just be advised, basketball will pretty well be completed. I think the county tournament is going to be that first week of March, I think is right. So principal may chime in on that. But most of them are at ball games tonight. I think probably every single one of them are at ball games tonight.
It is, I haven't, it's the week of the 8th.
It could be, I think maybe the
That's what I
second
have
week.
it down. as.
Maybe the second week. So Mama, you're right.
Spring break is.
And spring break is the next week.
I will tell you guys that I'm a tennis coach and I'm gonna start having tennis matches like crazy. I will tell you though that we always leave Wednesdays open and I like to leave Wednesdays open. But I'm willing to come Wednesdays if everybody else can. If we have to start picking some of those. I don't know how everybody feels about that.
Different state, what about you? Jennifer? All right, Lisa, so what day did it?
I don't guess anybody would want to do the 17th because that's spring break. What about the 24th?
Spring break won't mean anything to me, not Angie.
I can do the 17th or the 24th or the 31st. Mine's this week. I couldn't do it the 10th, but I can do it the 17th, 24th, and 31st.
What about
24th is fine with me.
24th?
Okay. That week we do have kindergarten and pre-K registration here, but we'll find a place to land. We'll find a place that goes on.
On the Wednesdays, they're with at 3. So
Okay,
we
so
should
we
have
should be
things
fine.
set up, but
All
that's
right.
when we need people here.
Right, okay. On the 24th,
Mhm.
What about March?
That is March. You mean April? That was March
that was March the 24th.
Oh, okay. Wow.
because we have one March 2nd.
On Wednesday, the budget meeting is going to be at 6.
I'm fine with that. Everybody else is.
I'm assuming all meetings are at 6 according to
Thank
what
you.
what board is doing.
Yeah.
Derek can hardly get here. He can get here at 6, but not 5:30.
And I will tell you, April gets better. So, my calendar.
You have your regular workshop on April 6th, and your meeting is on April the 8th. I do have a financial management meeting on April the 15th. If we have agendas on that. Any type of agenda.
I like the 5th.
5th, Monday night? Mike, you got it.
It's fine. Maybe I can.
How many do we need in April, James?
We already had more than we've ever had.
You're gonna be coming to crunch.
Here, didn't we?
You are gonna get down to crunch time as we move into May 15th. So May 15th is on a Saturday this year, so.
But your board meeting will be May 7th, is it no, it'll be May 14th.
Your board meeting will be on, your workshop on the 11th, and May 13th is the
Calendar.
meeting. On your calendar, Marcia,
I
I'll have to get you.
know.
I could find one in the country, I'd get it.
I'm gonna find two. Now I've got too much stuff on here for me. I was just thinking you'll want to do any kind of approval of your budget on that May meeting.
The May meeting by the 13th, yes.
So you need everything worked out at least the week before.
I strongly suggest one the week of May the 3rd and the 4th, but I mean, if you go back into April, you need probably do 2 or 3 there, definitely.
Can't do that. About the 20th. Okay, I can do that. April 20th.
April 20.
All right, that's 2 in April, we'll catch one the 3rd or 4th of May.
We have tennis districts, but they'll be during the daytime. So I'll do either one of those.
You can do it after the workshop.
No, that's the next week, ain't it?
Yeah, next week, the board workshops on the 11th.
The workshop's not the first week of May.
It's the 11th.
Yeah.
You've got that attorney, we'll have to pass something to send the commission on the 14th.
Correct.
So that's okay. You think that's not?
I would probably do one the 3rd or 4th, Mr. Chairman, just to make sure everything before you come in on the 11th.
Y'all fit that in? Third or fourth? Third.
Okay.
Wait. Mm,
And then after the the regular workshop, the budget workshop after. Okay.
If needed.
If needed.
If needed.
If needed, or if what you've got your workshop, you know you're gonna go along, I mean, you can put that on there, it's gonna be on the regular agenda anyway.
So the commissioners will meet on the 15th? Or is that just?
Well, we just have to have it in the commission, correct, Diane? Neil,
Well, you're supposed to have it turned into us by the 15th.
so
Oh, okay.
I'll
So
turn it
they
into y'all by the 14th and the commission.
won't act
The
on it.
budget committee has to act on that.
And we don't have a meeting, our meeting set in May yet, so,
So at some point after that, the budget committee will meet
yeah.
to consider. There's a change in budget, in the budget procedure. Mr. Chairman, if I can call on the finance director since he's here, talk about that just for a minute. So Diane, we submitted to y'all on May, let's say May 14th, soon as that morning, when the board meetings that night, that morning, we submit that to you. Now, what's the process afterwards?
Well, we'll run it, we'll take it to the budget committee. And, they'll have to approve it before it goes, and like, I don't know exactly what date it will go before the commission because it depends on how far along we are with, you know, the county's budget before we submit it, but,
We have a county commission meeting on June the 3rd, but that'd be pretty tight to get that done. Between the 15th and the 3rd, although it's not
yeah, I don't think we'll get it passed in June. We never have, but it would be great if we could. Usually we try to pass it at the first commission meeting in July. So,
okay, and that will be on July 10.
yes.
Last year, I think they did have it. I mean, it did pass, but it was toward the end of July, end of July, I think. We had to have, I think, one special call meeting where we went back and we proposed something and then
Yes, yeah, I think that's.
we went back and forth a little bit.
I think we met at the end of June or something.
We had, I mean, I think it was that July meeting is when it was approved. That's the earliest I think the comptroller's ever thought we had it in a long time.
It's just hard to get it done before the end of June, but that would be nice.
Okay, March 24th, April 5th, April 20th, and May 3rd, and May 11th, if necessary. All right, Mr. Curtis. Item number 8.
Mr. Chairman, lots of things happening right now in the school world. I think I've got, I told somebody here I was having whiplash for all the stuff coming in and out of Nashville in the last little bit. We're currently looking at multiple programs coming out of Nashville in regarding the 2%, which 2% is going to be more, less than that, but it looks like it's going to be somewhere around $400 per employee in the instructional portion of the BEP. I talked with Douglas earlier today about that. 4% is just, we're going to get a little bit more in our funding from the state next year. I look for that to be about 2%. That time you get through with that, doing that, because there's no county portion of that. There's no local portion that is matched. It's just, they hand it to you and say, okay, you do with what you will there. So that 4% will more likely be 2%, but the board will have to consider that in your budget negotiations as it comes forward. Looking at the summer program, we are getting preliminary indications regarding multiple programs that will be offered this summer. Dr. Milton and I have looked at that closely already, and there's about 4 different programs coming out this summer in learning loss that will be addressed. More details are to be forthcoming next week. I was on with Commissioner's webinar today, and she basically said we're looking at sending more guidance documents out by next week. So a lot of stuff happening regarding the summer program. So parents get ready, and we're hoping to have more transportation dollars for that. We have received dollar figures, And now we've got the dollar figures. Now we got to figure out how many seats we can do or have for those dollar figures. So that's going on.
Are we gonna require this for all kids or just the kids that are needing extra help? Are you gonna make it available for all kids?
So we.
The answer is yes, we'll make it available,
Well,
but
no,
they have to
we
meet
can't- we
certain
can't make it
criteria.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we can't make it available to all students. It has to be the ones that are the most needy. For you, Jason, you've been here, remember our summer reading camps with Read to Be Ready. So in our preliminary conversations, we've thought about, and even with Kathy and with Julie, Miss Mullins and Miss Vincent, on how, because we have to provide math, reading, and intervention, 6 weeks, 6 hours, 5 days a week for students in K 1 through 5, going into 1 through 5. So that's 6 grade levels. Math, reading, and an intervention time. We have to feed them a snack and lunch, and then we have to have some free time, recess, physical activity
Just
time
like
too.
regular school day.
Well, except that we don't necessarily have to have science and social studies. We're working on our ELA program. We think with this first year, our curriculum that we're using in ELA anyway, we'll be able to stretch it because of the pacing of it. We're gonna have some materials where we've actually got a unit of study that is recommended by our publisher to use in that sort of capacity. So we're looking at that, and then math and well, it looks like a big hunk of money when you start talking about staff and paying that, and then supplies and admin and custodial and subs as they're needed, and interventionists and special ed. Really, it sounds like a lot of money, but when you start dividing it out, it's not going to be much larger than our summer school. So we've already looked at the way Read to Be Ready worked, and Kathy was actually over that for a while. She can probably speak to this. What we did is we took those spring benchmark assessments, and then the students that were already being served in tier 3 and tier 2 intervention, we ranked them, and we started at the bottom, the most needy of closing those gaps, worked up the list. Once a parent told us yes, they were coming, we locked their spot in. If the parent said thanks, but no thanks, we moved on up. However, I think we'll have some principals that might say, wait a minute, if your child needs this, and we already know maybe it's contingent on going on to the next grade level, we're gonna get more guidance, as I think as Mr. Curtis said on
Are
that.
you gonna try to do this at a centralized location? Or you gonna do this
Well, we've
in
had
the school?
conversations. At first, we thought, well, this is gonna be a lot of money, and we're gonna be able to do, maybe multiple sites, because they wanted to be like 30% of our students. But honestly, when you think about how many teachers are involved, I think it probably makes more sense to have one central location.
More economic.
It's more economic sense, not having to run buses, multiple locations, just like we did Read to Be Ready. Serve our food, not having to have multiple lunchroom staffs available, one extra custodian to do the extra custodial work and things like that. But anyway, we can split that up and see, what it looks like. And normally what we have done in the past, I know when Kathy was the director, and then when Stacy and them were the director, they became the admin, but they were also a teaching admin, but they just sort of split the day up so that they could have some, rather than just having to pay somebody just to be the admin over it. As a matter of fact, Read to Be Ready finally would not even let us do that, so.
Still a lot of questions
So
on that.
that's just the learning loss camp, and then we're gonna have the stream and then the bridge camp. So, but those are for different grade levels. The bridge camps are middle school students. Those would be in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We've already had conversations too, working with Lisa Black and her ESP program on how we can make these mesh together. And one need that came up immediately was, okay, I have a 7th grader who really, really needs to come, but I also need my 7th grader at home to take care of a 6-year-old while I'm working during the summer, but the 6-year-old isn't going to qualify. How can we help those families out with an ESP program that can take that 6-year-old? But now that's just a 4-week. We got to work out all these logistics. Some are 6 weeks, some are 4 weeks, some are this grade, some are that grade. It's like, I need some chart paper. Connect the dots. but, Mr. Curtis, have you shared with them where all of those links are at?
I did.
I can make
I
you,
have.
if you'd like copies of all of these, I can make you copies. This is sort of for you, for districts and school board members. I'll be happy to make you copies of all if you want.
So that chart is all from called the summer session. That was, I mean, the special session of the legislature that deals with all 4 of these categories, meaning accountability and also the funding and all of that. Hold harmless is a part of that.
One of them doesn't really start until the summer of 2023, so we really only have 3 going on this summer.
But lots of things happening out of Nashville. The legislature will be back, it's back in session. And the governor's State of the State address is tonight. So I'm sure I'll try to go back and watch that and see what he's saying about education. But numerous funding issues. We're hoping to get more money for transportation for the summer program when the legislature reconvenes. And they are going to address that. So hopefully we can get some additional funds in regarding to transporting our students during the summer. Right now, very limited funding in transportation, and we'll need some good funding for transportation every day for our students, getting those students here now. But once you know where the students are and where they're at, then transportation will be worked out. That's all I have as of right now. So more to come. You're probably getting periodic updates from me over multiple subject areas. That's out there. So watch your emails. When I get something particular, our COVID numbers are down still, which is good. We have 70 total for the county right now. I've checked the county site late this afternoon. It could have changed a little bit, but it was 70 yesterday. So hopefully those numbers will continue to stay down. And teachers, many teachers have become vaccinated. We're very fortunate. Our health department worked with us greatly. And so most everybody already has their second dose. And so that's good news. And our numbers have stayed down, although I watched this evening and everybody's worried about the variants now of COVID. So that becomes an issue.
European and South African.
Yeah, that's the variance is what you have to look at. So hopefully, but we have been very fortunate in recent weeks and days. So I don't want to jinx ourselves. So everybody still be vigilant. Our schools are being vigilant, so we want everybody to be vigilant in what they're doing.
I don't have anything to say right now. I'll give everybody a 5-10 minute break and then we'll get into the, I'm anxious to hear what everybody's got.
Yes, sir. 2.0, you're going to go what you want.
We're going to cover that
Okay.
in our workshop here in a few minutes.
Can we start with Mr. Abels when we come back?
Can we start with what?
Yes.
Mr. Abels with the USDA is,
Mr. Abels, is with
So,
USDA is up there.
when we come back from break, we'll start with Chris. We'll come back and start with you next.
I'll stop the video and we'll pick it up. Somebody remind me. What's that? Yeah. And unmute. So here we're back. Okay.
Because she's a big proponent of it.
So we're back and Mr. Chairman, we have a special guest tonight.
This is Christopher Abels. Chris, we haven't actually met in person. I'm Neil. Chris works for USDA, and we've been talking to him about lending. So I wanted Chris to introduce himself and generally tell him how USDA lends to communities for schools.
All right, thank you for the introduction, Neil. So USDA Rural Development has at the heart of it a loan program, community facilities on a 40-year term, fixed rate, government bond. That's the primary product we offer to schools. Now that what that allows you to do is have a set repayment cost for the life of that building. We'll go a little farther out than most private lenders, even other bodies. And right now our interest rate is at 2 1/8, so 2.125, with the possibility to go down lower at the end of construction. If that interest rate at construction is lower, then we'll take the lower of the two interest rates. Main requirements for us, our technical staff review the architectural specs for the project as well as the environmental on the site. Those are the two main time drivers for any kind of school project with us, is how long the preparation of those two reports, and then the review by our technical staff and any revisions that have to be made before we can lock in funding. I know Neil's played with a couple different figures. What kind of timetable are you on, or what point or is the school board at on this project?
No vote has been taken, so.
Okay,
So it's part of the conversation, I believe, at every meeting right now is to
okay,
move forward or not move forward. And so it's a very present topic.
all right.
Start to finish on your review side of things, how long could that take, or does that usually take?
From the time that we have a complete application in, we'd be looking at somewhere between 120 to 150 days. That could shift a little depending on time of the fiscal year. We're dependent upon Congress passing a budget. So if Congress gets delayed at our start of our fiscal year around October 1, that could be shifted a little bit. Likewise, if there's an environmental issue or some major redesign has to happen with the project, that could push us out another 30, 60 days. That would be the main timetable. We'd be looking at the receipt of a complete application. We would try to go for 120 to 150 days.
You and I have spoken briefly about the idea that we would be using some interim financing, not from you, for the construction.
Yes.
And you would basically USDA would buy that loan out.
Correct. The way we would do it is we would lock in that financing prior to going to bid. Our technical staff would review the bid work, make sure it's set to go, everything's standard. And then once it's bid out and the construction starts, you would do draws through an interim financer. And at the end of that construction period, we would close it out. So you would get that full 40 years repayment instead of some sort of interest only period with construction. So that the actual time that the county would start paying back would be at the end of construction.
And if it takes us longer to figure out what we're doing or construction, how long can construction go before you consider the loan that we have pending a start over or do over or canceling from our perspective?
Okay, so funding from the date of obligation, which is when we lock in funding, we like you to have started construction within 3 years of that date, because construction should take, normally on a project this size, 18 months to 2 years would be a stretch. That'd be hopefully that'd be the worst case. So at 5 years from that funding date, if you haven't used it, then we would want to cancel that and go ahead and make you reapply if funding was not used in that 5 year period. But if you're making progress on it and construction takes longer, there's a few other factors can go in, but ideally within 3 years of locking in funding, you would be breaking ground or close to breaking ground.
There would be costs on our side getting the application prepared. Is there an application fee to the USDA?
No application fee to us, and any project costs from environmental work, engineering fees, architect fees, anything of that can be included in total project cost. So that if the county ends up spending anything on that, can be included in the total reimbursement package once we take out the funding.
Those are my questions.
Okay.
Let me address the point about the impact of the environmental study on new land coming into play or not coming into play.
The parcel that we may need to buy is that 3-acre parcel that you and I looked at the other day. What are the environmental requirements on something on that particular site? Because we're not planning to build on it, although it would likely have a parking lot and green space.
If that was going to be created it would depend on if that parcel is acquired within the funding package. Is that land purchase going to be in the same project, or is it going to be developed and turned into a parking lot after this building is already constructed?
Let's say we buy it first.
You buy it first, and then is it included in the construction or not? Is it
Yes.
is the parking lot made at the same time as the building?
Yes, it may
Then we would just review it the same way we're reviewing the site for where the school would be at. I mean, it would be no different. I think we looked at it, it would still be less than 10 acres, so it shouldn't push you to an environmental assessment. It would be an environmental report. No real difference in topic matters, just a slightly less complicated way to write the findings.
How many loans similar to what we're looking at do you deal with on an annual basis? Are we an outlier or is this common?
You're one of about half a dozen school projects bouncing around just in between the Cookeville and the Chattanooga area. So, core of the state, this is a pretty common request to come up on an annual basis. We get a few of these as, this is a cyclical nature. So it might be a decade before we do a couple more, just depending on where counties are at on building schools, but this is a common request. I think we've funded 2 or 3 big ones in the last 12 months. And by big, I mean $40 to $60 million school projects.
If the current interest rate would be 2.125 on the 40 fixed, on the construction loan portion, which I know he said would all intermediate borrower would provide that. But having said that, is the construction loan number less percentage wise? And if so, can you give sort of a 0.5% less?
We've been offered 1%.
Okay, is that
From an interim construction loan funding source.
so? Could you make an assumption that normally the interim loan, which would be construction loan, is roughly 1% less than the
In
fixed
normal, if it was a regular residential situation, I don't think you'd find a difference.
rate? Basically the
It's
same.
basically gonna be the same.
But as it stands now, is this an anomaly that right now it sounds great in the sense of 1% versus 2.125, or is that the norm though under this type of construction?
Can you answer that, Chris? It seems like.
Give me. Neil, you might have to repeat some of the question.
Yeah, the interim financing seems ridiculously or surprisingly cheap right now at 1% is what we've been offered. Do you usually find that the construction loan portion?
So interim rates tend to be lower than permanent financing because those individuals, those companies are only planning on holding that note, that debt, for 18 months to 2 years during the construction term. So they are more comfortable taking a cut on their profit margin with that, on the satisfaction that someone like USDA will take out that note relatively shortly, in a matter of months, not 40 years like we'll be holding it. So interim rates tend to be a little lower. Now, the fact that they're pushing 1% right now is just a matter of where the market's at. And those fluctuate from time to time.
Anyone else with questions? Thank you for listening.
I'm good.
Chris, I think that's everything for now. I'm sure we'll be back in touch.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Mr. Tables.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, if you have any further questions or discussion, I had just included in your packet, more kind of questions and answers where they are doing office hours through the ESSER 2.0 grant. So I kind of included that it's just a lot more details. If you had any specific questions that might have been related. As far as a presentation or PowerPoint, I mean, I had kind of done that last week. So if you just had any other discussions.
You have in your packet ESSER 2.0 allowable cost. This packet here. So any questions in regard to what we can and can't do with the money?
All right. Anybody got any questions for him? Elisa? That's not what I was calling on you for. Did you do your homework?
Oh. Yeah, I've spent the greater part of the last, was it 7 days? I hadn't talked about this part of myself in these meetings, but the best way I can prepare or try to make a decision is to pray. And I'm just gonna flat share that. So, before I start talking, I'm not saying that I've got some sort of miracle plan. I just have my thoughts. I told y'all in the beginning, I'm not a politician and I'm not good with numbers as far as money. I think we balance.
That's Neil's department.
That's Neil's department. I think he's a very wise man. But I've prayed for clarity and wisdom and discernment. And for us, for all of us involved, and for us to make ethically sound decisions. For the people that work and lead the Canyon County school system, for our teachers and our staff, but also, and most importantly, for our kids. Because that's the bottom line. I've said that a million times. We have this vision of excellence. I keep going back to that. And that starts with us handling this situation in an excellent way. We're faced with a very hard reality. Not the 5 and 6 people around this table. This county has a very hard reality that we're facing. And we've got to make changes. And I hope that everybody's listening when I say this on Zoom or in this room. We've got to make some changes that none of us really want to make.
Here we go.
I spoke with somebody today about why it's hard for me to think about the changes that have to be made. But we have to make the decision, do we want to change it our way or we want somebody else to change it? And I don't know about anybody else, but I will tell you that I don't want someone coming in and telling any of us how to take care of our children in our county, because we're very capable if we can lay down a lot of our preconceived ideas. Javen, I think you'll be very kind of smile when I say this, if we can lay down some of our selfish pride and we can get busy trying to figure it out. I think we have to have a plan in place that is fair, first of all, to our students, fair to our parents, and fair to our staff and faculty that have worked so hard, especially in the last year. It's our job to ethically deliver it and put it into place. We've got to structure the Canyon County school system in a way where all of our students get the best education and they get it in the right way. We need teachers in the right places, because maybe some of them aren't right now. We need our administrators to have a healthy support system, and we need facilities that provide safety and security in more ways than one. Some of the things that, after a lot of thought and prayer, that I think that we have got to, that would be beneficial in this county. We heard tonight from Miss Crystal Kennedy. That is only one aspect of why, after a lot of thought about this for years, and as a former middle school teacher, we need a middle school. We need our middle grades together. We need to be sure that we have related and fine arts. There's been discussion that those would be some, there's been discussion that that might need to be something that we think through. We need those things. Our kids deserve it. And we don't even have some of it right now. We need to make some decisions that will allow us to reintroduce some of those things and give it. The CTE programs have to be given to our kids, and soon. Not 5, 10, 15 years down the road. We need the CTE programs because our kids need to be equipped to go into high school ready to know what path they're going to take. And then when they graduate high school, they're ready to go into this world. And it starts in middle school. We need a broader curriculum. Some of the paperwork we've got in front of us tonight, we don't have a chemistry teacher at high school. I had an 8th grade parent come to me or speak to me about that. Did you know we don't have chemistry? We need to make sure we find that. We need to get it back in there. Think of all the other courses that we might be able to introduce if we could find the money to do that. We just need to know, we need to plan. When I talk about ethically doing stuff, and I know that some people are probably not gonna agree with this. I don't think it's fair to our parents, and this is hard for me to say, and for our students, and for some of our teachers to give them just a couple to 3 months notice of something really, really big.
I agree with that.
I think that we need to make a decision as to what the structure of Cannon County schools is going to look like, beginning with the August 2022, 23 school year. That gives us a year and a half, currently like we're at, to try and unify us as a community and figure out what moving forward, knowing it's got to be restructured beginning that year. And we've got to get busy putting some things in place. I don't know. I have thought a lot. Mr. Chairman, you asked us to think about how I took it as how it would be structured. I just said, I think middle school grades need to be together as soon as possible. If those middle grades can be together at the beginning of that in some shape, form, or fashion, whether that means a school building is built by that time, or we use one of our current buildings, I think they all need to be together. Because I think that's what we've all talked about that needs to happen in this county. So I think that they would all need to be together. I don't know if that means we put them all, I'm throwing this out. This is brainstorming. This is what ifs. Could those 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, however it needs to be with the numbers and stuff, could they be at one of our schools? And we have multiple, for a year, we have 1 or 2 K-4s throughout the county. A lot of people are upset about busing. And so those little kids would not be bused all over the place. Or we've talked about eventually, Cannon County Elementary, Middle, and High. I think that promotes unity. Those are the things I've thought about. And I am right there with all of us that we're going to have growing pains. And none of us there's not a one person in this equation that's gonna like every decision that's made. But if we all go about it thinking about being open to good communication and being open to having differences, and knowing at the end of the day, we're all looking toward the one thing, and that's what is best for the kids in this county, I think that we can come up with a plan. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know if that's exactly what all you were expecting. My daddy is a preacher, so.
I don't think you've been as bad as Mr. Curtis yet, but anyway.
I'll take it.
Jennifer?
Well, he gave us this tonight, and it's a little bit different than the one that we had. Not much, but a little bit. Be patient with me. I can't talk very well. I took all the numbers across the board from every school and totaled up how many kindergartners, how many first graders, how many second graders, all the way down. So I went a little bit different because I'm on the same page as Aletha, that I was trying to figure out, because I thought you were asking us for a solution, how to combine these children, how to consolidate.
Or have to stay open.
And stay open. So I came up with, by the time I did all these numbers and I went by what an average class can be and what the max class can be. And I did the classes by max. Is that gonna make them uncomfortable? Yes, for a little while, but we're gonna be uncomfortable for a little while. Do I wanna close schools? No, I don't. But I'm like Aletha, in 2.5 years, somebody's gonna make that decision for us if we don't make it. And I think we're capable of making it ourselves. My suggestion, and that's why I asked the other day, I don't know how many kids each building can hold. But my thought process was to move the 8th graders to the high school, because you need about 5 classrooms down on the bottom wing. There's 155 8th graders, and do like an 8th grade academy. There's not one of those in the state of Tennessee. But I also haven't found anybody else that's in the same situation we are either. And try to maybe do 6th and 7th grade at West Side because it's central, and try to do K-5 at Woodbury Grammar. But I don't know. That would take adding on to Woodbury Grammar. But there's room at the high school. Some of those classes at the high school are very, very small classes. And we can make it work. That's just my idea. And then those 8th graders would for sure be in those CTE classes.
So you're talking about all kids, K-5 being at Woodbury?
I don't know. I don't know what the school can own. I asked that question the other day. We didn't have an answer. Even with the addition onto it, would it hold them if we did the addition?
Not that what Wade and I have looked at the other day in our examining of that. It could hold pre-K, we could pre-K4 with an additional 12 classrooms, 4 on the existing wing and then doing the one in front with.
And how many kids is that put in each class?
That puts in not the max.
Well, I did it at the max.
We figured the average, instead of the max class size.
And I only did it for the max because obviously we don't have money to build anything.
Does the state have any say so in that?
No, the state would say you need to follow the guidelines of the class sizes. But the average is just that, the average. You have to have that average K-3 when you average all the classes. It has to average 20.
With the 155
And
kids.
each individual max could be 25. So you couldn't have just 25 in just every class. You can't do that. But what you can do is some classes could have 25, but your average of all of them is 20.
We added each school.
Hope I clarify that.
And divided the max into that. I mean,
And
teachers
get a
like,
waiver for
we
the
have 9
average.
kindergarten
You
teachers.
cannot get a waiver for the maximum.
But if you mixed, put them all together, you would.
You can get
Need
a
6 instead of
waiver
9.
for the average. You cannot get a waiver.
Does that make sense?
You can't go over that max.
If you had them all together.
K-5, and you have to have a middle.
Well, it's just at 6th and 7th at West Side for now. I was just trying to, I thought that's what you wanted, was a plan without building a building at this time. So that was my thoughts.
Wade, what's your plan?
I don't know if I've got a plan. Maybe a reaction. I keep telling you, light in the tunnel's a train. The way we've looked at it on paper, kind of similar to what Jennifer did. You know, I talked about last week, it wasn't even middle ground. And that was based on savings. And whatever we do, that's what we've got to have left to do anything to benefit the kids. That's what our objective has been. If that's there along the way, we can figure that out. I'll go with, this knowledge plans. Further discuss this. We've got some more discussion to do on this. Now, I guess this one program is going to come into play, right?
About the ESSER,
I mean, nobody's really mentioned that yet.
That's correct. We have $1.6 million that we will receive from the federal government. How we spend that is up to this board to give us direction on how to spend that money.
That decision's got to be, what's the timeline again?
We gotta do that.
We're gonna do that today, right?
Vote on it Thursday
Thursday.
night on what you do with that particular funding.
That's just, we have to have it written, submitted,
with all the.
line by line, ready to roll.
This is it
By
this week.
Our part is.
correct now, we've got to have it done by the end of this month. It's got to be submitted and all of that already done and already uploaded by March 1.
It just goes by board policy, so by board policy, yes, by ESSER policy, no.
Okay.
Thanks for the help, Wade. I appreciate it.
Does he have a plan?
I don't think he has a plan.
Yeah, I've got options. Mr. Curtis,
You want to submit Derek Mullins's?
go ahead and read Mr. Mullins.
Okay. I'll go ahead and pass these out and you can look at Derek's plan. So if you'll pass those down, please. Oh, sorry. Okay, has everybody got one? All right, Mr. Mullins's plan is for school consolidation. And Derek I don't think Derek's on, he's having to work tonight, but he's wanted me to read this. One, close Short Mountain, east side Auburntown. We have Auburntown to west side. Split east side and Short Mountain between Woodland and Woodbury. And then keep all the K8, keeping the K8 open and keeping them, meaning the ones that are left, till construction is completed. That's option one. Option two, close Auburntown and Short Mountain. Split Auburntown between west side and Woodbury. Split Short Mountain between Woodbury and east side. And then keep them K8s until construction is completed. Now Derek would have to give you more consideration in regard to what, on the construction. That's what he would like to do till construction is completed.
Wow. All right, guys, I've had a little more time to sit here and watch this, and I did my very best to be fair to all the schools. That got completely blown out of the water. They pay the taxes, did not want to do that. They didn't want to give us a penny. So my option one is to add on to Woodbury Grammar and start the construction of a middle school. I think with the savings of consolidation, we can pay for that. It's going to be close, and I'm very uncomfortable with that. Wasn't the figures that I wanted to see. It's very hard to do. Option 2 is to pick out individual schools to close or to balance the budget by letting employees go, which is something me and Mr. Curtis have looked at. You're gonna end up with nothing if you do that, because everything's gonna go up every year. You're gonna have to keep paying what you're paying. Option 3 is to try to continue the way we are until there are no longer any funds available, which I think will be 2.5 years. And then everybody in the county will be without school. State will take over, according to Jennifer, the research she's done, everybody has to be bused out to a different county. Now that's where we are. Option 1, I think, is the best for kids. I have never wanted to pick on an individual school and shut one down. I think that's crazy. I don't think people of Cannon County realize the financial straits that we're in, and I don't think they realize the test scores that we're producing and what we're giving our kids. I don't think they've really looked at it and give heart to it. That's just where we are. And we're gonna have to make up our mind pretty fast.
Mr. Chairman, I have provided for the board. This is from 2008. And what I did, this was a report that was done in regarding to the the size of the buildings. So I've gone through, if y'all want to look at that, this, I've written on that, that's my writing that I did today. And that's plus or minus what you can hold and not hold in regard to each school. So for your consideration, I did that.
Thank you.
And hopefully that will help. Now, this is basically the figures that Gregor Smith submitted. What I tried to do is I divided them by the high school by 167 square feet per classroom. The same thing with at the elementaries, except what I did on the elementary, since it's K-8, I took the low bottle of 122 and the high one of 144, divided it by 2, put 133 in regarding square footage. So I have that prepared for the board if you so desire to need that. That might help you in determination of which direction you wanted to go. Now, that's conservative figures. Gyms and cafeterias are included in that. So if you had to do it right, you'd have to go to every single diagram of the school, take out the number of classrooms, and then do your dividing on that particular, like what, very similar to what Wade McMackins and I did looking at the Woodbury Grammar School plans and sitting that and going through each individual school amount of what it could possibly hold.
So this number on the left is what you're saying.
The number on the left is a plus or minus, yeah.
So Canning, the high school could hold 746.
Well, if you took it the total, but again, the high school, you got the gym and the cafeteria, so you probably needed to look at those particular classrooms and what they could. But theoretically, this is what it could theoretically hold.
Mr. McMackins, did you ever do any more research on the local funding? Did you ever get that finalized?
Not just from what I told you the other day.
You ranked somewhere about 70
71, I believe it was,
on local funding.
out of 95. Yes, that was, there was two ways to look at that. One was, there's 140 something plus school systems in Tennessee. So that means some counties have more than one school system. And you have city schools inside the counties, not like us. So there's 95 counties. And of the 95 counties, there's 16 counties smaller than us in population. And out of those 16 counties, 9 of those got more local funding than we did percentage wise. The 71 was what we rank out of 95 counties. And the average local funding for the state was 40%. So we're 12 from the top in state funding, but we're down here on local funding. Make the difference. Now, the only thing I do not know is
and I haven't found that information yet, was to find out how many counties the local government was paying more than their required share. It doesn't reflect that in that report that I had, the revenue report. But that would be something to look at. Is how much more each county is given than they're required. We'll see how we rank in that.
And one thing I will say too, and I will repeat what I said the other night, is that it's not often that you get federal funding that you can spend it on buildings. Or any kind of construction projects from the federal government. So this is a unique opportunity in regard to utilizing these ESSER funds for that. If not, our ESSER team is prepared to meet, and whatever you tell us, then our ESSER team is prepared to meet, and we will meet, and then the committee will meet, and then whatever you say, this is what you're going to get, and I will disseminate, and we'll utilize that for learning loss, and then also in needs that individual buildings have. I did have for you tonight.
That's what I
you
was
have two
asking. Do
things.
you have a total of what everybody?
You have a needs assessment there that I have given to you tonight from the supervisors and from the individual schools. So you'll have two in your packet. The one that's got Mr. Cofer's on the front, that's from two supervisors who did that. And then I've also got the needs assessment from each individual school. I do not have a total on that because there are some things like Woodbury Grammars, looking at redoing their units on the top. Trane has not gotten back to me yet on what an approximate cost would be on the units on the gym and the 2 classrooms and the kitchen and the cafeteria on what they would cost it. So I don't have all of that basis.
So was all of this earmarked to come out?
Well, no, this was just needs that the individual principals submit each year in January. Ask them to do a needs assessment. And this has come from the needs assessment that they have.
We talked the other night, it came up to $300,000.
Now,
That's what I was talking about.
yeah, what we did the other night through the ESSER funds, then you let us know that we've got X amount of dollars, and that's what the committee will go back and they'll, like what we needed for credit.
That's the total I was talking about.
That
Do we know how much is that? We're getting close to. what
Yeah,
everybody
it
wants.
was in the neighborhood of $400,000. And that did not include any kind of, about the units that need to be replaced at particular schools and the heating there. I can spend $1.6 million easily. Our staff, so.
Well, you've got your finance department here, you've got one of your commissioners here. Anybody have any questions for them?
We also have Ms. Crystal Alexander, the new commissioner from District 5, is with us tonight via Zoom.
Hello.
Hi, Ms. Crystal.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Kim Davenport.
Glad to be here.
Well, I'll ask, nobody else, so I asked, got two commissioners here. Is there any chance that the schools can receive enough to keep everything open from the commission?
I'll go. Well, I think you've already said it, Jamie. The vote was in November, wasn't it? On the November ballot?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
We represent the people. People said no.
That's easy enough, wasn't it?
I speak as one commissioner, though.
I had to do a report not long ago. I guessed 2.5, you guessed 3 before we were completely in the race.
I will be going through that again. I know Bruce and I ran the numbers based on some set of assumptions, but yes, that's what the number looks like.
Completely bankrupt.
That's if we buy textbooks on a regular schedule, that's if we buy buses on our regular schedule, and if we put money aside for capital repairs. I believe those things get pulled out periodically to make the budget work, so we put those assumptions back in. So if we don't do some of those things, you can probably drag it out longer, but then you just have decaying buildings in worse shape and lack of textbooks.
And we do have probably a math adoption coming
2 years.
in the future.
We've got 2 more years with our current or getting by, so, and then we'll have a new adoption. And math is generally speaking, one of my more expensive ones.
Not as much as the ELA the last time,
We hope not, but you never, hey, the prices of
Has she been to-
curriculum keep going
Crystal
up.
been to any of the commission meetings yet?
I have no idea.
Ask her, has Crystal been to any meetings yet?
She was at the last.
Yes.
What do you think?
As far as you all receiving funding, I'll see if we can bring it up. I heard what Mr. Mahaffey said, but I'll see if we can bring it up.
Hi, y'all wanna go over the needs assessments that have been presented on the?
Now, these are per school, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
So this is not, and we're talking about the ESSER 2.0. This is probably reflecting of a lot of physical needs of campuses in regard to that, okay? Now, we need to consider learning loss. It needs to be greatly considered in ESSER. And then the other category was COVID needs that we've had because of COVID, correct?
So are each of the needs that the school has asked for, are those, they're asking for ESSA funding or just in the
These are
general?
just
fund?
general, this is, hey, this is just,
ACT.
ladies and gentlemen, this is just for general needs, not ESSER compliant. If y'all want me to go back, I will have to get the ESSER team back with principals and go back and check with them on how they desire these ESSER funds to be spent. But that most of these were just general needs that I get every year in January that we get, and this is what principals had submitted to me. And general needs for their schools. As in regard to ESSER, we would have to go back and look at each one of those to see if it qualifies in the ESSER categories, correct, Ms. Mullins?
Correct. I mean, if we are looking at consolidating, then, I mean, that's gonna play a part in reflect their each
Their
needs.
budgets.
So.
Correct. So is there anything in particular that you want to look at, ladies and gentlemen of the board, in regard to a particular school? If it does, then I will take notes and get back to you quickly. We have some principals online because we got elementary basketball games going on right now, so. But there are some few principals I'm noticing online that we can have them
Everybody
to.
needs to do their homework and read it. Hard to-
You have any idea what this going to cost?
Of course, when you look at the high school, they're saying, they're looking at more ACT prep, and you mentioned a chemistry teacher, adding that chemistry teacher back. And then they would like to have that the health science teacher back.
Who's the health science teacher now?
We do not have one in that position. We've been advertising a half-time position all school year and have had no takers for that position.
You don't have anybody qualified at the high school to teach
We
it?
do, Ms. Cook, but she's overloaded. She's done got her max out there, so we we're looking at that one, that we need to do that part-time to help liaison with the nursing home. But since of COVID, of course, our intern or interns can't go into the nursing homes right as of right now. And Mr. Nichols will be glad to speak on that. Every principal would be glad to speak on their individual schools. Some are more detailed than others. Regarding what their physical needs are and instructional needs.
This short mountain here, it says several floor tiles on the old structure beginning to break. Do we have a foundation this year?
I'll have to ask Stephanie, is Alexander, are you on? I see you're on. Are you listening, Stephanie, that you can unmute? She may be away during that. Like I say, she's got a basketball game going on currently right now. So is that, which number is that, Mr. Chairman? Which number?
It's on Short Mountain School, number 8. It said several tiles in the old structure are beginning to break. The floor tiles are breaking up.
That's correct.
That usually means you gotta.
That means that.
Mr. Curtis,
Yeah, go ahead, Stephanie. Okay.
it's Lisa. I don't know here she is. Hold on.
Okay, thank you.
I had to move to a quieter spot. What is the question?
Okay, yeah, y'all are trying to multitask. Go ahead, Stephanie. Number 8 on your list of your campus needs, you said several floor tiles in old structure beginning to break. Would you elaborate on that? Is that a foundational issue?
I do not believe it is a foundational issue, but at the same time, I'm not qualified to make that analysis. I think what it is perhaps where there wasn't an ample supply of wax, perhaps through the years, and then just with the mopping, maybe some water is getting under there because it's, there are several in the hallway. Maintenance has fixed those. And I have another space in the second grade classroom that has started doing the same thing. Again, I do believe it may be an issue of just where the overuse, the wax coating was not thick enough to prevent the water from possibly seeping under some of those tiles. During mopping.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Any questions, board members, for Principal Alexander? Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate it. Sure. Now, we can go back between now and Thursday. I can meet with principals and whatever, if you want me to go through and look at the ESSER 2.0 and go down through that specifically, if you'd like amount that you would preface me for.
But it sounds like this is general budget things right now.
Correct.
What we're needing is some guidance on working with the ESSER money and knowing what portion of that the board would like if they are considering any kind of building program. And if there is any leftover to take to an ESSER committee or whatever we're gonna call it. But if the board wants all of it or whatever part, then we need to know that too, because March 1st is 2 weeks away after your meet.
And this is where Mr. Cofer's would like 100, I believe 100 budget of $150,000 would be adequate for replacement.
That's for the committee to decide,
And that's,
right?
that's correct.
Okay, so I'm not doing them, I'm sorry.
Y'all do your homework on that. We can't. There's enough stuff there. We don't have enough. You can't cover that. Not enough in there. It's all that.
No, sir, there's not.
All right.
I want to,
Anything else? Done. I don't have anything else to say. Just it. That's where we are. Y'all got anything?
No, but I don't feel like we solved anything.
You're gonna have to make up your mind for the ESSER money by Thursday.
if you'll be glad to give me some guidance, and I will get moving rapidly.
We can't physically show. To go back, I'm backtracking a little bit, but we can't physically show, I think, a savings beyond the payment. Then this is a moot point for me. Because that's where I go back there. I don't see where the middle ground is. And, the only way you could save is close 3 schools, keep 2, and go to Woodbury Grammar. And you might be stuck in that limbo for who knows how long. Going forward. That's just kind of where we are.
But you know your amount of savings, you know that. And that's when we're saying if in any kind of building in the history of Cannon County, let me be a history teacher just for a second. Any kind of building program in the history of Cannon County, you've had to have the cooperation of the county commission to assist in that, whether it was in 1978 with the high school, or it was in 2000, 2001 with Woodbury Grammar, and then the additions added on. Every time of that was funded by county funding. Okay, now we're trying to add 100, and we're looking at the amount of savings that Mr. Applebaum has proceeded there.
It's almost the same as the payment.
Should the wheel tax be able to be extended? I'm not asking for an increase. I'm just saying to be extended until this is paid off, of us taking some of the savings that we have and then putting that in cooperation with the county and the school system working together. To me, that's the best way to go. And that is the county working together with the school system taking some of our savings, earmarking that to go on the principle of the payment, and then the payment continuing. That generates what, Mr. Happy, $526,000 on the wheel tax.
40, roughly 600. So 526 would probably.
So 500 and some odd 26
Yeah,
is the
you're
minimum.
definitely close.
So I'm just saying, if that were to continue, and then we take part of our savings, $500,000 or so, you put that on a 40-year note, then you're going to pay that off much, much earlier. Perhaps as early as 15 years that you would pay that.
Does anyone have to recall what the annual principal and interest is on the 40-year? I didn't bring my paper with me.
747,000, I think is what.
Versus roughly half of
Right.
that, what I remembered on the 15-year.
Right.
15 year was give or
Correct.
take 1.5.
1.4, somewhere in that neighborhood, depends on which interest rate you went with.
And your savings you projected ending up with 3 schools is roughly 1.4.
So that way you take part of that 1.4, the savings, invest that into your schools as well as, so it's a partnership between the two. If that is continued on with that $500,000. So you're not paying the total thing, the school system is kicking in as well as the county is kicking in.
But it is, but it's from designated funds of wheel tax, which as it stands right now, we know the $40 is dropping off. 26 at the latest and possibly earlier. Correct? All right.
Yes.
So with that being part of your equation of analyzing, then you're boiling it down to the point of putting it on the referendum down the road to see if you can get it extended, or asking the commissioners to vote and put it on.
So that's my question. If I can interrupt, I want to be sure I'm understanding. This can happen 2 ways.
Yes, ma'am.
The commissioners can vote on it and decide to just implement it.
Yes, but there's
Or-
a caveat there.
Okay.
And that is 30 days from that time frame, the public has the right to get a petition, put it on the referendum, try to get it revoked.
Okay.
Call for a special election.
Because the next election wouldn't be till 2022. And a primary election probably in March of 2022 is what you're looking at, or probably May of 2022. It's about a presidential race.
And again, Ronnie Mathis is just talking. In my frame of reference, I'm looking at, you got to make your decisions today. Okay? And when I say day, I'm talking in the immediate time frame, whether you're talking today, 6 months, year, in the immediate time frame. The $40 is not dropping off today or next year type deal. It's on, okay? If someone does put it to be paid off early because the funds have accumulated sufficiently to pay that note off, and the commissioners vote for that to take place, then it comes off at that point in time. It is set, it is set to sunset in 26, because if everything stays normal, based on original projections and so forth, the loan would be paid off because there's enough money to take care of it. So the term of the loan actually terminates at that point in time, okay, to pay off that loan in 26. And based on the additional vehicles that have occurred and additional collection of monies, that's why you can sort of project that and say it could be possible in 23 that it could be paid off as opposed to 26, okay? So you get there, and if it's paid off early, then you say, okay, we're in the process of building schools and we need the money to make this thing work. So we got to put this thing on a referendum to vote it back on the thing or whatever, or commissioners, we got to have the money. You got to help us out. You got to vote for it. So those are the two ways you can pursue, but like I said, the caveat on both of it falling through, commissioners pass and say, okay, fine, we're going to extend this thing. And somebody gets a petition up out there and those on for a referendum to be voted on and they shoot it down. Well, you know, if they're going to shoot down there, it ain't no sense asking to put a referendum out there to vote on it, because if undo what's already been done, they sure ain't going to vote for it again.
Right.
So both of those options now are off the table.
Right.
And you look and say, well, what is on the option left? We got the debt, we got the buildings going. We can't stop now. Gotta go. Well, there's one answer, isn't it? Raise property taxes.
I know Miss Crystal's new, but Miss Crystal, you're the other commissioner on. Any thoughts about what Mr. Maffey said?
I'm listening. Do you agree that we should take it before the commission, Ronnie?
Let's say, I don't know what you're asking or saying to take before the commission.
As far as asking for funding for the schools.
But when you say that, you got to do more than that. You got to produce something to make it meat on the bone. What are you talking about when you say produce funding for the school?
Well, ask them what are you all needing?
You need millions.
Yes, we need millions.
I couldn't hear you.
Well, they just need a lot of money. They need millions. They need millions of dollars.
Wheel tax can be used for construction.
So you're wanting to put the wheel tax back on the.
Well, so the public just voted down, Crystal, so I'm not sure how that conversation is going to get much traction.
What the commission voted, what the public voted down was adding to the wheel tax, not a continuation of the wheel tax.
Right.
They also voted down 1 penny
Increase
on sales tax.
It's
2-1.
I know we keep saying people don't understand and don't understand and don't understand, and there's some merit to that, absolutely. I don't know how you're going to educate them. I'm struggling with that one.
I don't think that the people, I don't think that they did really, I don't think that they really understood what it was for. And I think that if they had a better understanding, that they would be in support of the wheel tax. So I think that if we brought it before the commission again, and everybody had a better understand, the community had a better understanding of what it was for, it might have a better chance this time. What do you all think?
If they think we're gonna close schools, they're still gonna vote against it.
We don't have a choice. Like I said,
Right, right.
every school in this county is gonna shut down in basically 3 years. Every school. If you continue the way you're continuing. Every single one of them. Ain't no way around it. You're dipping about 800 and something thousand plus, sometimes close to 1 million into your reserves. You've got 2.6. Do the math.
In the reserves.
In the reserves. You can't do it. So you consolidate, you pray you can pay for that, or you just let it implode.
But either way, you're still gonna need funding, correct?
I think so, yes.
Right.
Well, let me just make this statement, and I know this isn't new, and I know you understand. If you believe there is savings in the neighborhood of 1.4 million, if you truly believe that is a correct number, okay? And you know for 40 years is roughly $800,000. Does that not give you some confidence to say, okay, if, this is the huge, and really it's an overriding question to be determined, if you think consolidation is the correct answer, does the math not support that?
It does, Ronnie, but sitting in our shoes where you're trying to build a CTE program, you're trying to bring test scores up, you're trying to do anything, we're not gonna have a lot of money left over to put towards education.
Would $700,000 not be a reasonable amount to try to get some of that started, Jamie?
It would help.
And if we had a middle school, Crystal would only have to write 1 grant and not 6.
You've got to have the teacher for the middle school that comes out of that 700,000. You've got to have the benefits for that teacher that comes out of that 700,000. It's not, that's not going to go very far. It will help. It will help.
I'm sorry, Jaden. I probably just didn't comprehend anything you just said. So if you be kind enough, in relationship to the middle school, say that again.
This Kennedy was talking about having a CTE. We were wanting to start CTE in the middle school area to help those kids.
I'm with you. I'm
And you know, the high school needs.
It's expanding this way.
Yes.
It's fetching more dollars. It costs more.
Yeah.
I understand.
It's an awful situation.
May I ask, how much has the county funded you all over the past few years? You know, I'm new to my position.
I'll send you that, Crystal, on how much that the percentage of that education has received over the
From
past
the county alone,
50 years or so. I can show you that in the amount of the percentages. But now, in recent times, that the MOE has been met every single time. There's not been a time it's actually above that, about $400,000 above the $500,000 above the minimum, which we get $2.9 million. According to BEP, $2.9 million is what the county has to provide for us at this point in time.
I wish we knew what the BEP would look like at that moment in time when we had 3 schools. I really would love to see that. And then I know that's an impossibility probably to construct, but it'd be interesting to see how much the system would change from the state funding because of the way we put it back together. I'm thinking we come out better on the BDP.
As far as leave, it being less, from this perspective, your student headcount is a major driver of your BDP calculation from the state. And that's certainly staying quote unquote the same, or whatever it is, you don't control.
Well, we've been threatened that people would leave and, you know, we wouldn't have our numbers.
Let me pull it up for you.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So,
But
yes, true, if we keep our numbers, we
Yes,
shouldn't be any
and
less.
square footage is determining your capital outlay that they contribute to. And y'all would know, is that going up or down in totality?
We did that once. I don't have those figures in front of me.
Because that's.
I've looked at that
One
before.
point 5 million on your capital expenditure from the state. You would think you're certainly safe from a standpoint it's equal to, could be a little more, but it's certainly equal to. So I don't think you're being penalized or getting less on that deal. I wouldn't think. I mean, certainly you can ask Mary Ann and she could probably give some rough guesstimations for you.
If that vote was a true indicator of what people, not necessarily parents, because all those may not have been parents, we don't know who the voters were. Ronnie, how many votes was it versus population?
If I need to go down, please.
You remember offhand?
I'm good.
What I'll do, I'll capture
That's
this
the
for you.
only thing I do remember.
And I'll email these to you.
It was
Okay.
pretty, it was pretty strong.
2/3 to 3/4,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
everybody voted.
Yeah.
So see now,
And the percentage was pretty strong.
Yeah.
We good?
I'm kind of, I know everybody was
Go back-
pushed.
go
In
back
fact, I
to
went
that.
in on, I don't
Let's
think
see
I
the
was even
CT
voting in
first.
on the board when all that went down on putting that on the
You
ballot.
voted in that election.
Yeah. But I'm saying what I'm gonna get at. I kind of spoke before I got on the board one night to the board. And I was worried at that time that the people didn't know what this really was all about.
Yeah.
And I think that's, so if, what I'm trying to get to is, if we do like Freddie suggests and come down to 40 and then work out a plan where everybody can understand what's going on and what it's about, how, what it would help. And if I thought that would work and people would go for that, then going forward would be something to look forward to, but
The only thing that can be used for is debt. They cannot maintain
right,
current buildings or pay staff members.
understand.
Wait, I understand what you're saying. Good points. In the back of my mind, I just keep coming back to, see, that sales tax, that's the third time that people do it.
Right.
So you would think they would understand that. So I think it is a very overt decision they're making to vote that sucker down, even though they're going to every county around us and paying it.
That's crazy.
So to me, there's more than just voting for a tax or against a tax. There's more on the table that people have reached their logic in thinking that they're saying it's about the money and I'm not going to pay for that purpose, which goes against everything that everybody in this room, I think, says and believes in. That is, sure, you support education. And yet they're not.
But we get hounded that we're elected by the people and that was what the people want. And Freddie, been looking still for that
I'll get you the
introduction to representation.
The trustee, the delegate,
Yeah,
county commission.
To Crystal's question, basically, I think 2 points in that is, you got your 68.5 cents that's dedicated to the pennies that are distributed on the budget to y'all, because that's been the same last 3 years, at least. Roughly, if you say $3 million local funding, you're a little under, but that's close enough to be correct.
2.9.
you've actually exceeded 3 million of the last 2 years, maybe 3. But, you know, all that being said, you're close enough at 3 million. 3 million local funding, with 68.5 of property tax allocation going to the school.
Did you say they were underfunded, Ronnie?
No, ma'am, because I define underfunded and overfunding based upon what the BEP is funded requirement of the state, and then what we contribute, which you can't underfund and not be in violation of the state law. In fact, when you add it all up, we're actually a little over $500,000 over.
Right.
But anyway, that gives you a good insight, Crystal, of sort of where the funding is coming from the local level.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
I don't have anything else. Y'all want to open this up?
I did open up the chat. And you have got the chat, and I will email you a copy of the chat. That was good.
Did you want to give them opportunity to talk? I don't care. I mean, they're there.
Somebody's got their hand on Mr. Trimble.
Yeah, Mr. Trammell has his hand up.
All right. I'm trying to unmute him. Okay, Ryan, are you there?
I am. I didn't have my hand up. I didn't think, but
I bet it was your hand.
Sorry about
That's my hand. Okay.
Sorry about that, Mr. Trimble. Freddie had rested over your name.
I was over your name. It's got a little hand, so my mouse is now a hand. So.
well, I've been pretty active in the chat, so I don't doubt that you've been. You probably had your cursor over my name to see what all was active. So,
We've got the chat. The chat is, I've got that for the board, so we're good.
okay,
Thank you, Ryan.
that's fair enough. Thank you.
Okay.
Nobody else has a hand though.
Okay. Anything else? All right, I need some ESSER guidance, so thank you very much. Thank you for coming, Crystal. I appreciate you being there.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
All right, we've ready to end the meeting. Okay, thank y'all. All right, let me,
Far right over there where it says exit.
where is exit at?
Little red
Okay,
button at the
there
bottom.
it is. Yeah, I see it now. It was hiding from me. Wade's head was.
Melinda raised her hand. Melinda. Yeah, Melinda's got her hand
Okay,
raised.
all right.
Where is she?
I don't
Where
see
you at,
another page. No, she's at the
Yes,
top.
sir.
Hey,
Hey,
Melinda. Hey, Melinda.
hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
How's the ball game?
Let's see, our girls won, our boys did not win.
Who did you play, Melinda?
We played Woodland. And then West Side and East Side, I know both West Side teams won. I don't know the Woodbury and the Short Mountain turnout. Anyway, I've just got in on the tail end of this. I don't even know if this has been discussed. I've been fielding calls and everyone wants to know when the decision is going to be made, what the decision is. And I keep telling them, I don't know. And I don't know if anybody knows. I don't know if the board knows. So if there is there a timeline on a decision for what the plan is?
Needs to be.
And you may have discussed that tonight, and I'm sorry I was just able to get on.
Melissa, it was in her talking points. She brought it up. She was.
2022, 23. Yes, Melinda, that was my suggestion tonight, is that we needed to kind of have a timeline to make a decision that if we were going to restructure, that we needed to make that decision very soon and let everybody know
And then the actual I can't get wrong.
Implementation.
Implementation of it,
It may be inflammation.
yeah, would not take place next school year, but the school year of 22-23.
Okay, all right.
That would give, that's just my suggestion. I don't know. I don't think any of us around the table yet know what a restructuring plan would look like. My suggestion tonight was if it took place, we needed to go ahead and say this is the timeline for it. That was not voted on, of course, because I think it's fair for everybody involved to know what's going on, to prepare for it, across the board, all of us.
I agree with everything you just said.
Yeah.
So where does that leave us? That's what you said. And I agree with it. But it was not voted on. So will that be voted on at the next board meeting, or is that the plan, or? Hello?
We're here.
Okay.
We're all looking at Javen.
Yeah, that's who that hello was for. That was for the chairman. Hello, chairman. Can you hear me, chairman?
I can hear you, bud. I don't know that we're ready to have it on the agenda. I don't know that we have all of our stats ready. But
Okay.
I do know, and you know, and every principal out there knows that we cannot continue the way we are. We all know that. Unless the commission raises land taxes, our 7-school system is it can't exist. And that's up to them. I'm not pushing blame off. I'm not saying anything, but if you want to keep a 7-school system, we're going to have more money, and a lot more money. And that's just a given.
Okay.
That'll give you something to work on. I can't control the amount of money we're given. We control where we spend it, but I cannot control the amount. It's either given to us through state funding, federal funding, or local. And if Cannon County wants a local system that has 7 schools, it's going to have to pay for it.
Well, you may not want to push the blame off on the county, but I certainly will. We have 2 county commissioners, one that votes bare minimum for the school board and one that votes that they don't want to give a penny to the school board.
You are correct.
I'm confused to why we as a school board and a county haven't went head to head with these 2 individuals and actually, quite honestly, primary to have them replaced.
Mr. Trammell, I have been head to head with them so many times. You have no idea. I have spent 3 years fighting this as hard as I possibly could. I've been to commission meetings and I've done everything I know to do. And I've pinpoint asked them several times, and you heard that.
I have, and I appreciate that. And Curtis, why haven't we sent something home with every student in the county to ask them to come against these 2 commissioners, to call against them, to actually increase funding for these kids?
I'll answer that, Ryan, because I can't. That would be a political decision, and we would get into major trouble with that if we even tried.
But you've got to realize that the people of Cannon County could have given the school system just a single penny to raise their tax rate up, and that got voted down 2-1.
I understand. And again, that's my question is why can't we send something home with every student to the parents to let them know that you have county commissioners that won't vote for their kids?
That's involving politics in the school, and we can't do that.
By law, by statute.
But it's a law.
Yeah, I can't.
All right. Well, as individual parents, can we not send have something instituted to send something home?
I think
that's not directed by the school.
You might work through your PTOs, Ryan, to do that would be what I would suggest.
Okay.
The commissioners have been told if they raise land taxes anymore that they'd be voted out of office.
Well, they're going to be voted out of office if we ain't got schools either.
That's very true.
I'll be gone. But it's been I did a tax analysis that Mr. Curtis can send to you. I can show you. I spent 2 days at the courthouse. At one time, we were receiving $3.05.
Correct, yeah.
$3.05 to the tax rate for our schools. And we're down to 68.5. We were 4 years ago, we were at 88 cents and they cut us to 68.5. They said it was the same amount of money, but anybody with a calculator in the mind knows that everything goes up. Teacher salaries go up, fuel goes up, everything goes up. Receiving the same amount of money for 10 years in any school system will cripple it. I hope you understand that. I mean, you do understand that, I'm sure.
I absolutely understand that. And I want the board to understand, I've been very vocal about closing schools. I'm not being confrontational against the board itself. I understand a large portion of this problem lies with the county commissioners themselves and not allowing enough money for the school board. And I would love to see that challenged, and I would love to help in that fact. And I think there's a lot of people in this county that would love to help in that fact if they had the information to actually do that. I don't think enough people understand that the position that you're in.
The thing of it is, they know, the commission knows, and the school board knows that the BEP would fund 3 buildings. It takes into consideration, not 100%, but mainly the amount of children you have. Of course, that's been debated 1,000 times, but it basically boils down to the amount of funding you get per child. And it does not take into considerations the amount of buildings you have. Now, if a particular county wants to maintain those buildings, then that particular county is going to have to come up with a way to pay for them. And County's infrastructure is collapsing. The schools are thought of so much that there's no money set aside after the additions that were put on to the grammar schools and the high school and Woodbury Grammar are paid for. There's nothing set aside for anything. The wheel tax was voted to be sunset, which leaves a $10 portion left that's going to pay for the roofs that I had just about sell my soul to get a roof put on 3 buildings. There's nothing, there's no funding, there's no future look, nothing's been done in Cannon County for the school systems in a long, long time. 20 years ago, when I decided to add on, and then after that occurred, it was forgotten. And I do mean forgotten, completely forgotten.
At that point, we were about 50% of the tax levy was for education. Now we're at 27.9% of the tax levy is for education.
Well, I agree. We have a severe problem with the county commission not wanting to fund schools. That's my point is I think our battle is with the county, not so much the citizens. I just want to make known that my battle is not necessarily with the school board as a whole. I think the whole has voted down middle schools multiple times. I think we have a battle to try to get funds, but I'll yield my time because I see there's people with their hands up and I know there's other people that want to speak or have questions. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
How can they fund? Might want to make that statement. Everybody's clear. How does the county get their funds? What's their
Through 3 types of
three types of funds?
taxes.
They are what?
Property tax, sales tax, which we get half of everything bought. Cannon County's 50%. And then the other is license fees and other types of fees that are done in the county. Those are the 3 types.
So the wheel tax, part of that?
Correct. That's the other types of fees is the wheel tax.
The county commissioners didn't vote all that down. Let's make that clear.
They didn't.
So when you go to them and ask them for money, they don't
They'll
give
say,
those
we're already
resources.
giving you $400,000 over what we have to give you. I
They're gonna
get
do
that,
it.
or 500,000.
That's why they vote, 'cause they just
That's what they did. All right, we got one more. Is that right, Mr. Chairman? You want?
Yeah, go
Mr.
ahead.
Eubank?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have a few questions and then I just have a few statements. I won't take much of your time. I realize it's getting late. A little bit about myself. I live on the north end, just right outside of Auburntown. My family moved here for this particular school system and also for the convenient location in between 40, how you jump on from Statesville into Watertown, and then also into Murfreesboro and then other ends of the county, as far as even Rutherford County. I work in a place in Rutherford County. My wife works in Nashville, and we know several other people out here that work out that way as well. We want it to be a part of Cannon County. We want to live in Cannon County, and part of it was the location, and the majority of it was our school. The school out here, my son will be going to next year, supposedly, if it's even still around. And that's one of the whole reasons why I moved here. I grew up in a place in Tennessee just like this when schools were this size. I didn't want my son to grow up in a 1,500, 2,000 person school. A little bit more about me. I know a bit about the education system. I also adjunct professor at Nashville State Community College. I've graduated Northwestern Police Staff and Command School. I've got a bachelor's degree, and I also have a graduate certificate from the FBI National Academy. I know a little bit about academia. I'm not a pro, but I know a bit. I just want to remind. I would like to tell you this. A lot of us work out here. A lot of us work on the other end, and we need our school systems for our lives. A lot of us are property owners, and we pay lots of taxes. I'm one of the ones that voted. My family, my wife and I, we voted to raise the taxes. I hate the thought of ever having to raise a tax. I'm not on that end of the political spectrum, nor am I on that end of any spectrum. However, we need our school on this end so that we can continue to live in Cannon County and support the county in other ways. There aren't enough jobs in Cannon County. Y'all know this. Everybody has to travel to Rutherford or travel to Davidson or even DeKalb. There's only a limited amount of jobs and good paying jobs in Cannon County. And I know that's part of the problem with the tax base, and I know that's part of the problem with the county commission. I would say this, though. I know y'all have done, and I've followed this. I haven't been vocal about it. I've been trying to let it work itself out because I'm really not one of these guys that jumps all into the political spectrum and then gets all into the stuff. But just as a question to y'all, I know you said you can't mix, politics with your duties on the school board, and I understand that, especially with the jobs that I do. I really do understand that. But have you sent a mailer out? Because I don't think you're asking for a tax increase if you do this, but have you sent a mailer out to the parents of each school system that are jeopardized of closing and just saying, hey, when you decide your deadline, for instance, if you said 22, 23, we're running out of money and we're closing your school system, just thought you might ought to know, and obviously make it a lot more professional than that. I'm paraphrasing, but you can do that. You can notify, and I think you have a duty to notify parents that your school system's in trouble and it's going to close. And I know you said you haven't finalized a plan or made decisions yet as far as what school system has or are being jeopardized, but you can notify people, hey, we're going to close 2, 3, or you can come to that decision which school it's going to be. And then you can notify parents. That's not asking for a tax raise. That's not blending the political lines with your duties as a representative of the school board. But if we're trying to motivate people, we're trying to keep schools open, and we keep failing at the referendum, we have a right to know, and we need to know early. And you know what? That may motivate people to do something at the ballot box. As far as the county commission, I know y'all have no control over that, but you are our voices to the county commission. And I know that you've tried, and I understand that you failed and failed. But I would ask that you reinvigorate your efforts to continue to be our voice and to continue to do that. You have to understand, for this end of the county, you can just drive up and down 96. You can drive up and down all these different roads out here. You can see that how big everything is building out here. Lots are selling left and right, from the Cannon County line all the way up to the Wilson County line out here on 96. There's lots everywhere blowing up out here. Big houses, big lots, big tax bases. So I'm not going to keep on ranting and raving. I don't want to come across I'm just trying to provide ideas, and I'm trying to provide enthusiasm, and I'm trying to let you know that we really need our school. We're kind of out here on the island by ourselves anyways. We really want ours to stay open out here, but honestly, I imagine people all on the other ends of the county that, you know, their schools are in jeopardy, they want them open too. So I'm just trying to be creative, find some different ways, and just be and let you know that even though people aren't calling into the Zoom calls and people aren't showing up to the meetings and all that, doesn't mean that we're not interested in keeping these schools open over here, because we are. Okay.
I just want to say thank you for being on tonight and for
Thank you.
expressing your intent for enthusiasm and to be involved, because it's an encouragement to us and it does give us things to think about and to ponder. And I'm not going to speak for the other three. I think I could, but I appreciate the encouragement.
About 25,000. Yeah, thanks, John. I appreciate you coming in. And that's what they want, is participants like yourself saying, hey, this is what we'd like to, you know, hear the voices of people just like you. So thank you, John. I appreciate your service. I know being a public servant, I appreciate what you do, John.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time. Have a good night.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Thank you, guys.
We're short on me.